very much for coming. This afternoon, Assemblywoman Inez Barron, whose background in education indeed gives her the insight, the determination to really take a look at school governance and how it is, how it was, and how it must be. So if you will, please welcome Assemblywoman Inez Barron from the 40th Assembly District in Brooklyn.
I want to thank all of you for coming and being here on such short notice to address this issue. And I have to say that as my colleagues in the Assembly voted on this issue, my position was then and continues to be no to mayoral control. And so I wanted to bring some reference to why I have this position. Hi, young man, how are you? Tell me your name. Malachi is here with me because he's a representation of what we're fighting for as we go forward. So I went and looked at John Dewey, and he said that society that makes provisions for participation for the good of all its members on equal terms and which secures flexible readjustment of its institutions through interactions with the different forms of associated life is democratic. So we think about Dewey as one of those persons, one of the hallmarks of education, and Dewey says that it's democratic for all of the stakeholders to have some representation in what it is as we go forward in our society. And we're here to say that what Bloomberg is doing, being the one person in control of all of what's going on, is undemocratic. Now, the state representatives have to realize that the relationship that exists between the City of New York's Education Department and the state is codified in law with a board of education, not a panel. So this body that the mayor has constructed has no codified legal status with the state, and that's important for us to understand. And we feel that mayoral control is flawed, starting with the chancellor. The chancellor is not qualified, he's an unqualified person. He could not stand in any of the classrooms and teach a lesson because he is not qualified. So as the chancellor has pulled together some deputy chancellors for instruction, they have in fact been people who have been through the system, people who have a history, people who understand what it is to teach children in the whole, and there are people who have not stayed. He has not been able to maintain a deputy chancellor of instruction because my information is that they have been disregarded and disrespected, and that is why they don't stay. So we have an unqualified chancellor who is not embracive of those persons whose history bring a respect of education. He does not respect them and bring them forth. This is a chancellor who said that all of these changes and reorganizations is creative confusion. He thinks that it's a good thing to be able to have all of this confusion because it'll create some kind of creativity. But it's also a chancellor who said, and I quote, "Creative thinking can't happen if children can't read." I said, oh my gosh, he's never seen a 3-year-old or 4-year-old in a pre-reading stage at creative play, talking about making up a story about their events. He thinks that the only way to justify creativity is through a reading test. That's why they put the emphasis on the high-stakes testing. We have a system where the chancellor and the mayor defied the campaign for fiscal equity, which was able to fight for 13 years, and Robert Jackson's here, you may talk more about that. And they now want to take that decision and rearrange the money that should be coming to reduce class size and use it in other manners other than what has been codified for them to do. That's what happens when you have mayoral control. A person who disregards the law, who circumvents the law, and who juggles the figures for his own benefit. Talking about a chancellor who decides when he wants to close a school. He doesn't give a reason. It's not based in fact. It's not based in the school perhaps not having met its annual yearly progress report data. These are schools that are in good standing with the state. The state is saying, well, there might be borderline here, so rather than pump money into a school that has gone from a D to a C and is on the rise, put more money into them to make them be compliant with what's required, he wants to close them down. Why? Because rather than put that money in them, he can close it down and it comes off the radar. It's no longer looked at as a SIR school because it's an agreement that, well, if you take it off, if you close it, it won't be in that category of being a SIR school. So those schools that are SIR schools, if he jumps in and says, look, I'm going to close you, it becomes a school that's no longer on the SIR list. So then you begin to juggle your data. You begin to fudge the figures. You begin to say, oh, all of this is so great. And if we look at the NAEP, they will tell you that the statistics of test results for New York State are not any better than what exists all across the nation. The entire nation has been on a rise since 2002. So the fact that we have mayoral control has not benefited us to any greater degree than all of those other schools that have been existing across the nation. I'm also concerned that because this is a mayor who's taken money and taken it from the education budget, $2.2 million, for citing of charter schools. And there should not be any money given to charter schools for their citing. True, the children that are there are entitled to the same kinds of protections and entitlements, but not money for citing. And I'm concerned that he's beginning to make this a mandate that he's putting in place and going forward with that. It's against the law, but we know this is a mayor who flaunts the law, and it tells you take him to court, and when you do that and get a decision in your favor, he still continues to flaunt the law. So we're saying that this is not what we are looking for. We want a body that is reflective of our children. We want input from our parents. Yeah. Parents have got to have a say. And I feel that the Senate bill that came forth has no teeth. It does not give parents power. It does not give parents the authority to act in their children's best interest. And we've got to get the mayor with less than a majority on the PEP. That I think is critical. We've got to get the mayor with less than a majority. We've got to get a chancellor who is qualified to run the school system. And we've got to make sure that parents have a voice only, not for their children in their own individual schools, but throughout the entire system as it's going forth. Now, we talk about data. Well, this is a mayor who has fudged the data, manipulated the data, and he's not disaggregated the data. If we look at the data will tell us that the number of black students in gifted and talented programs has dropped dramatically. The number of African American teachers has gone from 20% overall to 14%. And we also know that the number of black superintendents has gone from 3 to 0. So this is a system that has not been good for all of us, and particularly looking at African Americans has not been good for that community. So we're saying the mayor has failed to reduce class size. He's ignoring and defying those legal edicts that come back telling him where he needs to make changes. And that there has not been significant growth in New York City's children as compared to what the state is doing. And finally, I have a quote from Martin Luther King. And Martin Luther King said that to save man from the morass of propaganda, in my opinion, is one of the chief aims of education. Education must enable one to sift and weigh evidence, to discern the true from the false, the real from the unreal, and facts from fiction. The function of education, therefore, is to teach one to think critically and intensively. But education which stops with efficiency may prove the greatest menace to society. We must remember that intelligence is not enough. Intelligence plus character is the true goal of education. So what we're saying is that as we go forth, we want an education system that encompasses academics plus the arts plus athletics in a curriculum that is culturally relevant. And that's what we're here to say. One of the goals that we're going to put forth as we go forth, talking about no to mayoral control.
No to mayoral control.
No to mayoral control.